Hello and welcome to another episode of Application Development Today. My name is Don Jackson. I'm your host and the Chief Technologist here at OpenText. I'm pleased to have with me today Mr. Elad Naaman. Elad and I have been working together now for, probably 3 years that we've actually been actively working together, but it turns out that we have some history that I wasn't even aware of behind the scenes, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Elad, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey, thanks. As said, my name is Elad Naaman. I've been part of that industry for the past 25, 30 years. 30 years, basically being part of what we used to call in the past cloud or managed services before anyone on the globe even thought about the term SaaS or used public cloud the way we use it today. And basically, you are one of my first customers. We just found out about it just lately. I'm running today most of what used to be the Micro Focus product and product line within the bigger company, which is OpenText. OpenText, we are now an OpenText cloud vendor for our products, and I'm running that side of the business and the cloud delivery. And happy to be here with you today.
Well, thanks for taking the time today. So we're going to be talking about SLAs in a cloud world. But before we jump into that, so the reference that you made, right? So we were just talking a little bit earlier ago about this. It was, I think it was late 2001 or early 2002 that I took over at the company I was with. I took over the Active Watch solution that we had back then, which evolved into many different things, Topaz managed services, and then Mercury managed services. And then I think the next one was that we called it SaaS or whatever it was. Right. But yeah, I mean, I was a customer and frankly, back then, I mean, to be able to leverage my load runner scripts and do a little bit of tweaking and run them in production with public POPs, points of presence, to be able to do that was just phenomenal for us, right? Because it meant that I could reduce the active monitoring footprint that I had to have from a knowledge-based perspective, and I could focus my efforts and have people be able to work on pre-production and production monitoring. It was fantastic. So we already have gone down a little rabbit hole here, but yeah, I didn't even know. I worked a lot with Mustali back then. Poor
Yep.
Mustali had to deal with me, right? And I know Mustali's on your team now.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time today. So we're going to talk about service level agreements, SLAs, and I know I violated our own rule of DYA. Define your acronym. I said SLAs and I didn't define it earlier. Sorry, but service level agreements in a cloud world. So how do you establish expectations around a level of service from a cloud provider? What should you do as a business person?
Yeah. So if that's okay with you, I want to take like half a step back and then go back
Sure.
to the SLA just for a second. Why do we even need them? Why do we even need them? Why do we even have expectations? So I think that by nature, all of us, we get service. It could be service from a traveling agency, it could be from a cloud provider, it could be from an internal peer that we work with in our work, or it could be in anywhere else. Okay, we have expectation. We have expectations. I think one of the interesting things that happened to the cloud delivery world, and as said before, I've been personally part of that revolution for decades now. That means that my own perception of how should I manage expectations as a provider, but also as a customer or consumer have changed. They have evolved. They matured. Some of those expectations have just been raised. A lot of the new technologies in the world, we probably can talk later on, maybe on AI and other stuff. But a lot of things impacted those expectations and leveled them up. But there's another thing that happened with those expectations. They got to be part of the business, where whatever those expectations were, they started being part of your business. When I have an internal expectation today, anywhere between, you choose it, a product management and an R&D. an R&D, and a sales organization. A bank and his associates inside his IT department. Everybody that has expectation, it is what it is. It's an expectation. And when you go ahead and you mature those relationships, those expectations needs to be part of a contract. They need to be something on the table. Sometimes, in many cases, they should be part of even the decision taking. Who do you work with? Who do you work with? If someone can guarantee certain SLA and someone else is not willing to guarantee that SLA, and we can talk about what guarantee means, okay? But that could be, potentially could be, one of your points to look at when you go ahead and close an agreement with the vendor. Cloud provider or cloud service provider or consuming an application service in a modern world over cloud basically holds two parts of responsibilities into that. One of them is the product, and the other is the service. Let me give you a simple example. You wouldn't like to get a great car, but a poor service that comes with it, right? Something happened to the car, no parts, okay? Or it's a great car, but it breaks down every 10 days. So when you think today about a good product, could be a good car, could be good anything, could be a good application or a service or a solution that you consume from a vendor, you have the luxury today in a modern cloud world to say it's not just the product I expect to get that meets my expectations and my needs, it's also the way it's being delivered. There's no use of having great delivery with crappy products. I'm sorry about the term, it's a technical term. And there is no need to have a great product with no enough reliability, or in other words, a service level agreement between you and the provider that comes with it. Okay.
Awesome. So so establishing those expectations. So you talk about, having that agreement between them. I mean, we ran an internal when I was at one of the customers before coming here. We ran an internal consulting firm. Essentially, we actually had to compete against external consulting firms, and we wrote a lot of contracts around that. It was started off when I started the performance engineering team there. We had contracts, internal contracts with how long it would take to create each performance script, right? And based on the technology, right? And if it took longer than that, my team had to eat that cost. So so you talked about service level agreements and those. There's also the term of service level objectives. So what's the difference between a service level objective and the service level agreement, and why are there both?
So let me start with the basic. We need both.
Okay.
We need both. But let me go into more clarity, at least in my perspective, on this one. Let's start with the easy one, with the SLO. SLO reflects service level objective. Okay. If I boil it down, we are talking about good intent. Good intent. Okay. So we, as a vendor, we have full intent. It's a good intent. It's a good intent to keep, I'll just give you an example, to keep the application running every time, in every given minute, 100% of the time. Okay, that's what we aim to. In reality, and the reality is out there, in reality, some things might happen which is outside of our control, the vendor's control, the customer control, anywhere between human errors, technology failures, third-party involvements, product-related, force majeure, everything could be involved. Service level agreement basically takes all those good intents and the realistic events that might happen and just stretches the line and say, we're going to make it to this line, and anywhere below this line could be an excuse, could be a potential discussion item, could be something we can learn from, and I'll give you that, Don. Okay, I'll give you that. I think one of the best things that we have, at least internally today, is that we are closely monitoring our SLAs, and we're doing two things. One, we are raising the bar all the time, because if you always meet your SLAs, maybe you took a bigger margin than you should have. Maybe you took a bigger buffer than you should have. So we are investing in-house in people, knowledge, technology, modern technology. In these days, for example, AI-based technologies and others, to basically say we can do better. We can do better, we can do better, we can do better. And we are translating that into our agreement with our customers. So I think it all starts with a good intent, with the service level objective, and we aim high. By the end of the day, it's enforceable and it is real, and it really pushes for action mainly when there's a service level agreement behind it. Now, I started with saying we need both. We need both because, the easy question could say, okay, put everything on an agreement. By the end of the day, there are some things that keeps evolving, and we need a good intent, and we need a good involvement behind them. We need an incentive for the vendor, incentive for the partner, incentive for all the involved parties to keep raising the bar. We need to aim for that North Star, that objective we want to get to. When we mess everything with service level agreement, with a contract, when everything is binded into a contract, we sometimes miss the bigger picture. So some of us maybe have been in discussions where you're not happy with the service, and the other side said, well, look at the checklist. I've done A, B, C, D, E, I'm good. And you say, okay, I understand that you've done A, B, you've checked all the check boxes, but I'm not happy as a customer. We need a good intent. It needs to be well described. It needs to be there, and the relevant parts out of it, and we can define what should be an SLA and what good SLA looks like. But those things should really be part of very well-defined level. Above, good. Below, could involve excuses, but should be call for action to explain how we do better and how we don't fall below that line again.
Yeah, I think about that in my personal life. I just had this experience. So I play an MMORPG with my kids, massive multiplayer online role-playing game, right? And I tried to log into the thing, and there was a message that popped up, says, "Sorry, we're experiencing a DDoS attack. We're trying to resolve it." DDoS, distributed denial of service attack, right? That's something that is frankly, it's outside the control, right? You have a bad actor that's trying to bring down your service for malicious intent. These things happen in the real world. How do you anticipate that? I don't know. But I started thinking about that, and I'm like, as a consumer of this product, as truly a retail consumer, man, I don't have any agreement with the customer, with the company at all, right? There's nothing, I could get in for like a day, right? And now I pay for online access to it, and it's supposed to be always up except for maintenance windows, but it was gone for a day. What's my recourse? Nothing, because it's really an objective, not an agreement that they have for uptime.
Can I piggyback on your example for a second?
Absolutely.
So, one of the good things that we have as practice, by the way, we have it part of our operational framework. I mean, it's not something that we do because I think it's interesting or nice, or because someone else is doing that, or Mustali, as I mentioned him before. We do it as part of the way we behave and the way that we work. It's part of our operational framework, our open text cloud operational framework. We take a look at those unexpected events, as you mentioned them, like this DDoS attack and others, and we always compare it against our agreement, or in other cases, the objective. And in those places where we say we have an answer, let's take an easy example, okay? Ran out of storage, okay? The easy example of an application. Easy example for that, right, is, hey, monitor your storage, make sure that it doesn't run out, have the right monitors. If it does run out, have a failover solution, whatever, okay? So that's an easy one. But some things are just unexpected. unaccepted. You described that DDoS attack, and we have multiple things. If I can take you to the most unexpected one I ever had, there was a fire extinguish system in a particular data center that started working in a different area of that data center, and everything was okay with our servers, but the noise of that fire extinguisher was kind of a whistle. It appears to be that whistle was exactly in the frequency, believe it or not, that erases disks on the storage.
Wow.
When I heard about it, I said, come on, you're pulling my leg. Okay, no way. No way. And the guys on the ground told me, look, it's real. It's real. And there was a special frequency. If it happens in this frequency, okay? And everything can impact that, the distance between our part of the data center and where it happened, the atmosphere, even the air, the density of the air, everything impacted that. But it literally erases the disk. Now, you show me someone that could have expected that problem, okay, and I'm hiring him tomorrow morning. So we couldn't expect it,
right.
But, and this is a good thing, but the good thing, we know and we plan some things will be unexpected. So we are planning redundancy. We are planning to the case that something completely melts down and doesn't work. It could be 2 high availability zones. It could be 3 high availability zones. It could be data protection. It could be a lot of stuff that we actually do. It could be parts within the product, which, by the way, it's another thing we can talk about. The advantages of having we talked about the product and the service. The fact that you consume both from the same vendor. The one that gives you the product is also the one which is committed to the service that comes with it. That's a huge advantage. Okay, I never tell a customer today, well, the service was great, but it's something in the product.
Yeah.
Open a ticket for the product. Never happened. Okay, so this SLA we talked about, it reflects everything. It's a one-stop shop. There's no excuse going below the line, like not our problem. We are throwing nothing over the fence. It's all ours.
Single throat to choke, right? I know it's a terrible. It's kind of like multiple ways to skin a cat, right? Another one of those terrible sayings. But single throat to choke. I have one place to go. If I have a problem, from a consumer perspective, I don't care why it's down. I just know it is down, right?
Exactly.
And so being able to go to that single place and say, it's down or it's slow, fix it. And having that single accountability point I think is the way to go.
Can I take like even one step into that?
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. We found out that sometimes we missed SLA, for example, or we were close to miss SLA, and a part of it was it took the customer some time to tell us there was a problem. And even this is within our responsibility today, the way we perceive things. It's part of our OpenText Cloud operational framework today. It started with saying, I would like to know about the problem before the customer knows about it. I want to take that I'm letting you know there's a problem. I would like to take those cases to be as few as I can, okay? I would like to know about the problem before the customer knows about it. Second, it became heuristic. So in many cases today, we are tracking multiple indicators that tells us there's gonna be a problem and it did not occur yet. So we are literally today, sometimes fixing problems before they happened. Let me give you a simple example, okay? You want to go on the road to get from point A to point B. You do it on Thanksgiving Eve, okay? Thanksgiving Eve, and there was a crash on the highway, okay? Crash on the highway, okay? Before you even saw the traffic jam, before you even see what's happening on the highway, you already know there's going to be a problem. Okay, you know there's going to be a problem, and then you can plan a solution. And that solution could be take other ways. That could be leave before time, or in other cases, that could be change where you were supposed to have your Thanksgiving a meal and do it and do it somewhere else. But what I want to say is that even before you see the jams on the highway, you know it's coming. We do the same. We do the same. And now when we have the power of AI, generative AI in many places, we are also even planning for the solution. We are sometimes even planning for the remediation, and we are sometimes even changing stuff on customers' environments before the problem even happens. So that accountability, we take it not just to meet an SLA and to resolve, but also in other ways to monitor, to expect, and to save those minutes, those seconds, sometime even before they even occurred, before they even happened.
That's
part
awesome.
of the accountability.
So we alluded a little bit to it. So what would you say then are the characteristics of a good mutually beneficial SLA, right? Because there's two sides to that SLA, right? Because it's a contract. There's the vendor side and the consumer or customer side. What are those expectations that both sides should have on a good SLA?
Yeah, so let's start with the consumer. Okay, I think he's the one paying for the solution. He's consuming the service, and I would definitely start with the consumer side at all time. By the end of the day, an application serves a purpose. When you have a mission critical application on your side, it's one thing. When you have an important application in your organization which is not mission critical, it's something else. When your application is doing online trading, you have one set of expectation, and when your application is doing payroll calculation every end of the month, it's something different. It needs to start with your business needs. And I wouldn't say there's no sense, but I would definitely say it's not smart to have too many SLAs and too many KPIs and too many agreements around the area which is not really important and needed for the consumer to consume the service. Now, the
DYA, KPI, you use an acronym.
Key
performance indicator.
Key performance indicators. You're right. And I would say that when we talk about SLA, a service level agreement, it needs to be attached with a simple to understand, simple to measure, and most important, agreed key performance indicator. Agreed, in best cases, a number. For example,
something quantifiable
and agreed by all parties how it's being measured. When we talk about a solution or a service uptime, we are talking today about 4 nines, which reflects 99.99% of the time the application is up and running and available. Other vendors will give you 3 nines, 99.9. Maybe it's good enough to the service you're consuming. I would assume that if your service is online trading, or if your service has to do with worldwide shipment and others, I would say that's not good enough. It's not good enough.
Right.
And if your business is something else, it could be something else. It needs to start with understanding your business needs and what you expect from that specific application. In many cases, there are other rationales for that. We have customers buying from us tools that has to do with development organization. If the customer is big enough, and we have large customers, every minute of downtime reflects thousands of developers that are unable to work. That has a cost to that. Mm-hmm. Put that in your decision, who vendor do you go with? Put that in the decision. Is your vendor willing not just to say, I'm doing a good intent, I have a service level objective to get there? Are they also willing to back that up in the KPI, in the key performance indicator? Are they willing to say, I have an agreement between you, Mr. Customer, and me to say that that's the threshold I need to get to? So I'm going back to your question. I think a good KPI would be something which is important for your business, well-defined, measurable, and agreed in between both sides. I would like to add to that one more thing. It should be ABP. It should be aggressive, but possible. I've been in situations in the past where we've looked at requests which are not realistic. Not realistic. I'm not saying they're not important. I'm not saying they are not required. I'm saying they are not realistic, not as an SLA. There could be a good intent. Could be a good intent, but they are not realistic. And it will be a wrong behavior by a vendor, but I also think it's not the best way to push that as a consumer to say, I don't care. I need you to do ABC, even if it's not doable. I think that's kind of losing the purpose between SLAs. So I think it should be important for the business. I think it should be measurable, clear who's measuring that and how, agreed, and it should be aggressive, but possible. I think those are the characteristics for a good KP, for a good SLA, service level agreement.
Awesome. So we've talked a little bit about it, but how is the move to cloud, right? So, cloud is a pretty revolutionary thing over the past 10, 15 years. How has that impacted SLAs?
It's a great question. I'll divide it for two. Let's talk about the cloud, which is not your application provider. Okay? People taking their own application. They get, for example, us as a vendor, open text. They get the software from us, the solution, and they put it on a public cloud, hyperscaler cloud, doesn't matter where, but they put it on the cloud. They need to manage two set of expectations. One expectation is with the product, the one who sold them the solution, and the other expectation is with the vendor. If they do a good job on this one, they have a total set of expectations, which is translated into good intent, service level objectives, and into measurable objectives, which are backed in an agreement, two agreements, with the vendor of the cloud and with the vendor of the application. And altogether for them, this is providing their business needs, the assurance around their business needs. I think in a different case, where the cloud service provider is the same provider that provides the product, you earn two things. One, you called it before, one throat to choke. I get that. I would like to call it accountability, but it's like clear accountability that you can actually stand behind. There's nothing outside of our control. We own the application, we own the service. We are here to meet the SLA. So that's one. Second, and I think even more important for that creates kind of a closed improvement cycle, closed discussion. I'll tell you, for example, part of our framework today, I'm meeting with the product people, with the engineering, with others. Udi, for example, that you and I know so well, And part of our discussion is, what do we need to build into the product which will allow better service? Sometimes a reliable service, sometimes redundancy and high availability, sometimes scalability, sometimes performance, sometimes cost. What do we need to build in that the cost of the service will be more competitive and a better price for the customer? But all together, it's one vendor. You will never hear a hyperscaler talk to us as a vendor and say, well, change the product because it will allow my customer to have better service or better cost or better reliability. It's the cloud provider one and the application provider one. And then again, going back a little bit in circle, but there's a huge, I would say, there's a lot of power between someone accountable for the service end to end, which is able to go on the immediate call. He's not going to call. He's part of those discussions. What's included in the next version, next release? What's the scoping? And it serves not just the product and the features, it also serves the serviceability. So I think Go Cloud really changed the way that us as a consumer, we no longer look at it as, I hope someone will provide the service. I think it became a business. And it's definitely a revolution I've been personally going through over the past decades again. It became a business. It became something you can measure in an SLA. And it became something that if you're not on top, the technology, the releases, the products, AI, which I mentioned like 5 times already, it's still there. It's still there. If you miss one of those turns, you miss something about your ability to deliver tomorrow's KPI, tomorrow's SLA, tomorrow's service.
All right, so you've brought it up again, and we've talked. You've brought it up a few times. So, how has or will AI impact these SLAs?
Yeah. So so I'll divide it to 3 things. Some of them are, it's like an iceberg. Some of it you can see, it's above the water, and some of it is below. But I'll be happy to open the kimono and talk about those 3 parts. One of it is the products themselves. Okay. On the product level, embedding AI or other LLMs, LLM technology really changed and should change the product that we actually deliver to our customers.
LLM being large language models.
Right, which is kind of
Find your acronyms.
Yeah, you're right, spot on. Thanks. This is my 2nd strike already. I'll not go for a 3rd, I promise. But customers expect to get something new, something different out of that, and most of products are actually going there. The OpenText products family is completely adopting wide range and wide ability of those related LLMs technologies in many ways and many variations. And we are changing the way that we are actually structuring what we deliver. That is the product side out of what we deliver to our customers. The second part, I mentioned 3. The second part has to do with delivering the service. And AI allows us today to say, hey, Mr. Customer, let's change a little bit what I ask from you, what I ask from you as a customer. I'll make your life easier to consume our service. Let me give you a simple example. We have thousands of customers, okay? We have a lot of service requests, tickets, and a lot of communication going between us and the customers. Just think about yourself as a customer, and there is a virtual agent out there, not just responding to you, Don, but also helping you crafting your need and your question. And based on the thousands of interactions we had with our customers over the past years, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, I'll tell you what's the best way to describe your need, your service request, your ticket, that will get the resolution either faster, more accurate, to your best satisfaction. What data should you insert? And the virtual agent will do it for you. But what's the data you should insert that will put all the required data in there, but will not overload your ticket with 20,000 other stuff that are not relevant? They can either confuse the people on the other side or pull the whole discussion the way that you, the customer, did not want it to go. So we're leveraging power of AI for what you would probably call a virtual agent, and also an assistant. That's one example. And then the third. So I talked about products. I talked about the way you consume a service with us. And then I want to talk about the third one, which is in many cases below the water. This is cost. So the power of AI, generative AI, basically allows many customers to replan and to use the product sometimes different. In some cases, we are agnostic as a solution provider. But in some cases, that matters. It matters the way that consumes our compute services. it changes the way that we look at storage, that we look at how much knowledge we can, based on what is allowed in GDPR and other regulations, but where can we help in between products? So we need to open bridges of data and know-how in between. All of that impacts cost and impacts the way that we consume, that we consume the IT related services and other services. And we need to evolve. We need to make sure that we are ready for that. We need to make sure that it's part of the way that we are planning the future service. And it's part of the way that we do cloud today, evolving that as well.
I got to say the topic about the virtual agent and having it guide you into properly wording your ticket, I hadn't even thought about before. And that's, as I think about the hundreds, maybe thousands of service ticket interactions I've had in my personal and professional life, man, sometimes there's just that communication breakdown between me and the agent, right? I don't understand what you're asking me, and they don't understand what I'm asking them. Man, to have that guided and using a large language model, a generative AI model, to be able to help format and guide you through based on all these previous interactions is that's kind of mind blowing to me. So my last question for you is we've talked about SLA being a contract vehicle, right? So how does that impact what you build in your daily life of a cloud operational framework, which you mentioned earlier?
So, so I would say that the framework is going all around those SLAs in two ways. One, but let's start with the immediate need. The immediate need, okay, we deliver the SLAs. Okay, we meet the SLAs, we deliver the SLAs. We know that we live by those SLAs, and our whole operation is looking at those agreements and say, we're going to meet them. We're going to meet them. It also drives a second cycle of what happens when we expect either we are getting too close to the SLA and we are not where we should have been, or alternatively, we've gone into a point that we missed an SLA, and we usually take that as a turning point, as a learning point, as something that we say we need everybody, all hands on deck, and understanding how we don't fall into that pitfall again. And as I mentioned before, Don, everything counts. Force majeures, people, things outside of our control, everything by the end of the day should be covered. Okay, so there's literally no excuses. I think the third and the last cycle out of that framework is that we constantly look at what we are expected to deliver tomorrow. Today SLA, I assume, will not be good enough for tomorrow, for the day after tomorrow, and we are not waking up tomorrow morning and scratching our heads and saying, what can we do today to have a better SLA? We plan it today. So in OpenText, we're looking. Usually, we talk about 2030 as a goal. Where are we going to be as a society? Where are we going to be as a world, if you wish? 10 years, 7 years from today, in 2030, and I think that also reflected in a consumer cloud provider, solution provider world. It will evolve. There will be more and more things within the SLA, and that SLA itself is going to be higher and higher and higher. The bar is going to raise, and we are planning it today. We are planning it into our product. We are planning it into the serviceability that I mentioned before. You talked about the virtual agent. Okay, if we had enough time, I could give you 10 more examples about real cool stuff that we are building as we speak. All of that will be part of what we do. The good thing about the framework that we have, that all those thoughts about how we're going to look in 2030, how will the service provider relationship look like, how will the SLAs reflect all of that, We don't do it just because someone woke up in the morning and said, let's think about it today. It's part of the framework. We release products on the product line, and the cloud provider service people are part of that discussion. We talk about technology with the chief technologists and the architects, we are asking, how will that impact tomorrow's world on a service provider consumer world? How will that be reflected in an SLA? How will that be there? So it's part of our framework on a day-to-day basis. And I think this is also, sorry for saying that bluntly, I think this is the reason why we are so aggressively increasing our cloud community today with our customers. We have thousands of customers. We meet the SLA, we're above the SLA, and we're keep pushing the bar up, the bar higher. It's because it's part of our framework. It's not based on good intent, my intent, or someone else's intent. It's part of we operate. It's part of our framework. I think that's a secret sauce, if you ask me.
The Elad's secret sauce. So speaking of I always give featured guests a chance to provide parting thoughts or words of wisdom. Elad's words of wisdom. EWOW, right? We'll make a new acronym. EWOW. Elad's words of wisdom. What parting thoughts do you want to have to the audience here?
Yeah, interesting. So I'm going to say something which might be completely against everything we just said. I think SLA matters. I think agreement matter. I think contracts matter. I think they reflect a lot of stuff which are important for your business, and they should be there. I also would like to say, when you have a relationship with a vendor, application plus cloud vendor, which is completely managed out of an SLA, you're probably missing something. I don't think this is a healthy basis for a day-to-day relationship. I think it's a healthy basis to build a contract, to set expectation. I would definitely open those set of SLAs every once in a while. Could be a year, could be 18 months, could be every time you renew an agreement. I would definitely put it on the table and say, well, how did the SLA change? Because technology has changed, because expectations has changed, because we've seen we can do better, because your business needs have changed. So I would definitely go to those SLAs. On a daily basis, your cloud provider, your application plus cloud provider should be a partner, a strategic partner for you. It is someone that when you go on a call with him, when you have a need with him, he doesn't open a checklist and said, done. I've met all the SLAs. It needs to be someone that says doing two things. One, I understand your business needs. I'm behind you with those business needs. I'm your assurance you can do them. I'll give you the application and the service coming with it. That's one. And then the second thing you want to hear from that vendor, in this case from us, is that, that SLA for me, it's good for now, but I'm evolving. My framework is pushing me for involvement. I'm evolving and evolving and evolving. So you talk about words of wisdom. When you go for your next contract signing, when you go for your next vendor selection, I will go for that vendor 3 points. One, that talks the SLA language and understand that it's a contract. It needs to reflect your business needs. Second, you need to see that vendor and to trust him, that he can meet those SLAs and evolve them as he goes, because the bar is going higher. The bar is being raised, and either we are there with him to be one pushing the bar, or we are below. Those are the two options, okay? We want to be the ones. You want a vendor that pushes the bar. We do that. But that's the second thing. And the third thing, once you've signed the contract, don't live outside of the contract. Live out of strategic partnership in a relationship. It's the healthy way to get it, and it's also more fun.
Yeah, and you talked about understanding the business. I think that's one of the things that's critical is understanding, because it should be this symbiotic relationship, that the vendor needs to be understanding your business. If they're not asking you questions about your business and how your business is evolving so that they can meet those evolving needs and anticipate what's coming up, I think you're missing the boat if you're falling on that just a contract conversation. It's always an SLA conversation.
Spot on.
So Elad, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate you taking this time. I know there's some time zone differences between us, being halfway around the world. I appreciate you staying late. I got up early. It was great. And I always enjoy our conversations. And I'd like to encourage our audience as well. If there are topics that you'd like us to cover in one of these podcasts, please feel free to reach out to us. You can put it in the comments for the video, or you could send an email to me, djackson3@opentext.com. That's DJACKSON3@opentext.com. And we'll incorporate that. This was actually one that was suggested, was to talk about SLAs in a cloud world. So thanks again, Elad, for taking the time today. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
If you liked the video, please click the like button. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you get notified when we release new videos.